Proverbs 21. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. Proverbs 19. House and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. Matthew 19. He answered, Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not a man separate. Okay, top of the day to you guys. All right, guys and gals. All right, we're on the topic. Talking about male and female. What does this have to do with it, right? We're in episode 3. This is just a 3-part series. I like doing them this way. It's kind of fun. I have like a message, do it over a couple of podcasts. And this one is about titled Be in Love, right? And this is chapter 3. And then you're thinking, okay. All right, so where's Veritas going with this? Is he going to talking about be in love, right? And then he's quoting scripture about quarrelsome wives. What's going on here? So let's dive into them. We'll repeat them and kind of break them down a little bit. And the goal of today's episode is to add some practicality to something that I and some others that I'm familiar with have been practicing with initiating and taking advantage of the power and the intelligence that comes from channeling, more or less, a state of being in love, right? So the scriptures are Proverbs 21:9. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife, right? Proverbs 19:14. House and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. Right? And then Matthew 19. Now, so if this is all just about marriage to a wife on the physical plane, like a female lady marrying a man, some of these words might be a little interesting, right? So, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, right? So, some people have interpreted that to mean that each human being themselves are comprised of a male and female, a masculine and feminine component. And for me, it's a lot easier to recognize this perspective when I see male as energy component of the polarization of one who's being human, wherein the energy component is the masculine, which is the least limited, the least needy, and the least defined aspect of the self. And the feminine component, or the vibration, is the aspect of self that is the most limited, most needy, and most defined aspect of the self. Okay, sorry, I had to cut it out there for a second. I was wondering where that noise was coming from. It got really loud, and it was my heating system. So I just turned my heat off. So I'm going to suffer in cold for you guys, or cooler temperatures. It's not really going to drop that fast. So when I look at the male and the female component, right? So we have the male component, energy, more limitless, more needless, less defined, right? And then you have the feminine component, which is more defined, more limited, more needy, right? And some could argue, well, what value is there in that, right? Wouldn't the most powerful aspect just be the energy? But what is energy without expression? What is content without form? What is thought without meaning, without feeling? The material, mater, right? Even the word matrix, all right? So the word matrix means, stems from the Latin word mater, M-A-T-E-R, and it means mother, right? That's the womb. And it's a beautiful aspect of creation. And you'll find there are different types of people out there. There are some people who have navigated their lives, no matter how quote unquote masculine or manly they may seem, that they've actually polarized more to identify with the feminine aspect of themselves, which is the body personality matrix. So the more defined that characteristic is, the more needs that it is seeking to fulfill, and the more structural form or limitations it has upon itself, the more of the feminine nature it is, right? And so someone could be very manly, but very in the body, right? In fact, there are people out there that literally live their entire lives and have always thought literally they are just this body, and that anything they're going to use to navigate their world is going to depend upon the brain, right? They believe that their feelings begin with the endorphins in their brain. They don't see that there must be some other driving force behind the experience of happiness, right? It's like, oh yeah, well, I have a chemical deficiency in my brain, so I can't be happy unless I take these outer material things to change that, right? So there's some people that really live an overly, quote unquote, subjectively, from my opinion, overly live in the realm of the feminine aspect of themselves and think of themselves as only the body. And then there are those like myself who lived the majority of their lives predominantly in the perspective of being more towards, quote unquote, the spirit or the energy, right? Which some people could say, oh, that's more good, right? You're more in the spirit, right? We're using words here to explain very, very complex perspectives. So I'm careful. I do the best to be as careful as I can with explaining this, because there's gray areas in between everything. But some people could see. So look at it like this. So someone who has lived their lives with a tendency to be what others would consider to be well grounded would be someone who is more in the feminine, in my opinion, right? And then, which is the body, more in the body, more of Mother Earth, right? The material. And then there are others who, like myself, was known as a kid with his head in the clouds. And some could say, even as an adult, tend to have my head in the clouds, didn't really have boots on the ground. And usually you'll find that people that are polarized in one particular direction or the other may feel very strongly about how their position is the right position. So they may look at those with constantly seeking inspiration and ideas as foolish. Well, they always got their head in the clouds, right? And those like myself who had their head in the clouds would look at people who were overly focused on the material. I thought they were foolish, And when I first started becoming more aware, about four years ago, I swung even further in the direction of spirituality and renounced the world, so to speak, and really dove into that aspect of myself. Why? Well, multiple reasons. One, I really do like, if I want to transform my material, I think it's important that I'm able to bring in the new. So it was an important step for me to really dive very, very, very deeply into that aspect of self to help me transform the material aspects of myself, personality matrix, aspects of the body, things like that. And now what I'm doing is I'm starting to swing more into a state of balance and centering, wherein I wouldn't consider myself to be grounded, as if grounded would be in opposition to having the head in the clouds. And I wouldn't represent myself as being one who has his head in the clouds in opposition to those who are grounded, but rather I'm centering myself and getting to the heart, where I can understand and bring into balance all the different aspects of myself, both of my feet, my hands, my head, my heart. And so from that center is where I can establish equilibrium, right? And when I say equilibrium, and not for me personally, although I have exercised states of neutrality, it's not a complete neutrality, because I believe that love wants to express itself. And if I tried to hold only neutrality, I believe I'd be neutering myself. It would be just basically applying pressure from two different directions to cancel each other out. And I don't think I would have the movement of expression that I wish to enjoy in this life, right? Idle hands is the devil's playground. And I believe that love wants to continue to express itself. And if it's blocked by me trying to maintain a state of apathy, it will bounce back at myself, because I'm still, while I can really appreciate and understand the depths of the spirit, which to me is the consciousness and the universal mind, while I can appreciate that, I am also presently experiencing being this body in a world, and I want to bring those two into harmony, right? So this is what I see when I read the scripture, right? So to me, it's so, for example, if we take the wife as being the female aspect of ourselves, the body, let me give you a couple of reference points, right? And these are just to look at and yourself and see if it resonates with you, and if it connects dots for you and helps us to make sense of the extraordinary, abstract, brilliantly infinite world that is way beyond that which we see in front of our faces, and bring meaning to it by marrying these new ideas to your old paradigms to create new wineskins, so to speak, right? So here's some ways we can look at it, right? Think of the two poles. On one end you have the masculine energy, and on the other end you have the feminine vibration, right? So I'm going to give you some different ways we can look at it. So masculine could be energy, right? Least limited, needy, and defined, right? You could look at it as a creator component. You could look at it as the positive charge. You could look at it, if we look at the four elements, you could look at it like air, right? And then you have the feminine component, right? And the feminine component would be the vibration, or the receiver, or the created, the more limited, the more needy, the more defined. And if we're going to look at it from a perspective of elements, you could look at it like earth, right? And then, of course, you have earth, right? And then you have air, and then there's some stuff in between there, right? So if I make hot and cold, I have subjective degrees, right? So let's say the maximum heat you could have is 100 degrees. I would say, well, 100 degrees is hot and 0 degrees is cold, right? Well, okay. But the more you go from 0 degrees to 100 degrees, the less properties you'll take on of being cold, and the more properties you'll take on of being hot. Yet we can divide them up through subjective interpretation and identify them or denominate them as a particular thing, right? We could say, well, 25 degrees is this, 50 degrees is that, 60 degrees is that, 70 degrees is that, 80 degrees is that, right? It's really cool. So just because we have the two poles doesn't mean that we only have those two poles. Those two poles give us the idea and the concept wherein we can apply subjective interpretation in between that allows us to have awareness, value, perspective, and gives us the ability to transform things and change things and move things, right? So you have the creator component, the energy component at the top, right? Least needy, least limited, least defined, very airy in quality and substance, right? Another way that, and then you could look at air at the top, then below that would be water, right? So air, undefined, it doesn't need anything, it just is, right? Definitely less limited, right? It just flies around, right? And while air can do some pretty powerful things, overall it's a very soft, like airy substance, right? And then you have water, right? So water is a little bit more limited, a little bit more defined, a little bit more needy, a little bit more limited. And then you have fire, right? Which fire is one there. I could explain it, but I don't want to spend a lot of energy on that. Fire would be one down below that, and then you have finally earth, which is the most defined, right? And so for this reality that we're in, you have all of those elements. You have them all in your body. You have the fire, the electrical impulses in your body. You have minerals, you have water, and of course air, right? And they all work together in harmony and unison to create this life experience that we have on this planet. And then of course there's a fifth element, and the fifth element is ether or love, And it pours in and kind of interacts with all of those, right? People say, what do you mean this fifth element? Come on, like all I can see is I see the earth, I see the fire, I get it. But, if all we have with those elements, what precedes those elements? Right? At their basest form, you'll find that they're, from a material perspective, they're comprised of the same substance, right? Positive and negative charges. Atoms, quarks, right? Just keep going down deeper and deeper and deeper, and you see that from a material perspective, everything is comprised of the same substance, right? But there must be an inversion to that material substance that is within all and through all. And if there's a visible substance, that means the visible substance itself was created. So if you have something that is created, materialized, manifested, you have to have an inversion of that, which means something that has properties that appear to be inversions of its properties and its duty or responsibility exists. So if you have, if you go to the basest form of what comprises all material, you'll find that it's one and the same, but yet it is still material, as we know material to be. One could argue that it's ultimately just positive and negative charges and may not be as material as we think it is. But anyways, for the sake of this, there's some kind of form to it, right? So that would mean that it's created. That is the created, right? So if that's the created, and it's more defined, limited, needy, right? The material substance that is in all and through all, that we can see, touch, feel through the senses, then its creator would be something that was less defined, limited, and needy. In other words, invisible. And because it isn't defined, it's limitless. And this just has to be. Just how it works. You literally cannot create hot, an idea of hot, without having its inversion exist. You can't up without having it down. If you make a vertical line, the top of the line is diametrically, let's say you make jar line, right? The top of that line is diametrically opposed to the bottom of the line. So when I say this is the top of the line, or north, let's say like there's a north and a south on that line that I've drawn. By making the north, it will have an inversion automatically created instantly, and by definition of the north, right? And so now what's amazing is the more like south I become, the less like north I'll be. The more I turn the volume up, the less I'm turning it down. The more I turn the volume down, the less I'm turning it up. And then once you make that north-south line, well, now there's automatically its inversion. People may not be aware of the fact that other thing was created or exists. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. A one-dimensional being living on a piece of paper doesn't mean that the one-dimensional being is not in a multi-dimensional world. Just may not be aware of it. Right? It doesn't move to another dimension. Right? It's within the dimensions. Right? It can travel along those dimensions to different coordinates. But anyways, it's a whole other story. So that's just it, right? So you get down to the purest, rawest form of what makes us us, and you're going to find that it's it's positive and negative charges with something holding it together. So that it's a trinity. But for the sake of this expression, we're going to call that the material, right? And so there is some level of definition to it. There's some level of limitation to it because it is form. And there's some level of need to it. Right? Well, what does that need? Well, it needs something that brought it into existence. So if you have that material, then you have the inversion of it. If you have something that's created, then there is a creator of it. And then there'll be a channel or conduit where the two meet. And that's you and me. We are in between the creator and that which is created. It's phenomenal. Just like in time, you sit in between past and future. Or what has been presented. Technically, you reside in this realm that, in a sense, in some ways, is beyond both, but also unifies both. In this present moment, when you look out what's in front of you, what you're seeing is what has been manifest, but simultaneously bringing in the new next moment. So that by the time you realize a moment's happened, it's gone. So So you're literally in between the bringing in of the new and the discarding of the old. And just like if you look north, you will be in between north and south. You walk north, you're still in between north and south. You go west, you're still in between west and east. Really, really cool stuff. You're the gateway between these two worlds. And so when we're going back to the scripture about house and wealth are inherited from the fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord, right? And let me actually look this one up so I can get it right. I don't have it memorized. Prudent etymology. I love etymology. It's so cool too. You can just Google like, what's the etymology of this word, right? So prudent. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Wise, discerning, judicious. Judicious. Why is that hard to say? Try to say that. Judicious. There it is. Judicious. Sounds like Sean Connery. Junior. And Jenna was the dog's name. Jehovah's not spelled with a J. It's spelled with an I. Right? Knowing, skilled, sagacious, circumspect. Right? So when we look at it, it's like we want to have, another way to look at this, right? So one end you have like kind of airy, right? And then you have the bottom, you have earthy. To me, I like to say that I kind of sit in between those four elements at the heart, the ether, and I'm constantly pouring in and channeling in love to unify and transform those, right? But another way to look at it too is there's something I've referred to it in other episodes, but I'll do a brief explanation of it. There's something in the Bible known as, not the Bible, it's like ancient scripture and stuff, and architecture. It's called the tetramorph. And the tetramorph shows a cross in each corner, in the space left open by the cross itself. There is something, and in the center is Christ. So there's 5 total things. And in one corner is a bull, in the other corner is a lion, in the other corner is a man, and the other corner is an eagle or an angel, and then the Christ is in the middle, right? The heart, bringing them all together. It's called the 4 faces of God, or the 4 elements of God. And and so one way you could look at it is the eagle, or let's just call it the angel, right? Would represent air. And the super conscious, right? It's the connection to the universal mind, the divine mind. And that super conscious is what brings in inspiration, new ideas, right? And then the man would represent intelligence. And that would be what we consider to be the conscious, or the water, right? And then the lion would represent the subconscious or subjective conscious mind, right? Intuition, right? And subconscious, intuition, lion, fire, right? And then the bull represents instinct, unconscious, earth. Right? And so when I first started becoming more aware, I really thought like, oh, I got to pick a side, because that's how duality has been, right? You look at so many things, we're trying to make 2 sides and keep and us as the delineator between these 2 sides, instead of unifying them and embracing them so that the sum becomes greater than the parts, because now you have both polar sides, and then us in the middle, you get 3, right? It grows from there. But like, as you unify them, you become more than what they are by themselves. But as you act as a delineator or a dam in between those 2 things, you create disharmony and an unhappy marriage between 2 things that are only separate because of your choice. Ultimately, they are inexorably linked, but it's the disruption that we cause by placing separation and the unallowance of union between those 2 things that causes the disharmony, discord, and uncomfortable areas of our lives, right? Always trying to battle against the 2 things that are joined. The Bible says There's another scripture, and I'll paraphrase it, that says, let no man separate what God has joined together. And that's what we've been doing. And so when we hear the scripture, to me, it's representing those two components within ourselves. So it's better to live in a corner of your housetop than a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. I don't think it means like, hey, go get a good wife who's not going to argue with you. It's like, this is all within ourselves, right? It's like, are you arguing against yourself? There's you're both. You're the wife and the husband. And husband actually is husbandry is like gardening, right? So there's a part of you that's responsible for husbandry inside of your mind, and the Bible talks all about references to growing crops, right? So there's a part of you within that's the husband, providing husbandry to the cultivation through intelligence and inspiration, bringing in the new information and introspection that allows the weeding of the garden. And the Bible says a farmer, in Gospel of Thomas says a farmer came in the night and planted weeds amongst the farmer's good seed. And the farmer was asked, shall he pull up the weeds now? He said, no, for when I do that, I shall pull up my crop as well. But when the weeds and wheat are clearly visible, I shall pull up the weeds and burn them, right? And to me, that's kind of what this life is about, is, going through experiences. And when harvest time is there, harvest the fruit of the experiences that were fruitful to you, and take that and use those seeds to grow in a deeper understanding within the garden of your mind about how that behavior served you. And when you identify weeds, utilize proper husbandry and cultivate that garden. If we do not, and we try to grow both of the weeds and the wheat at the same time, they will quarrel with each other. And it's not the fault of the wife, quote unquote, right? The subjective consciousness, which is literally designed to be built of the past. It cannot transcend itself. It has a necessary reason for being. It gives context and meaning and makes things matter in this material world. And without it, without that form, there's no point of expression. It is a beautiful component and aspect of ourselves, our world, our nature, and our state of being, right? But we have to understand what it is designed to be and do. And so if we are not being a proper husband to our wife, and cultivating the garden appropriately, Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, when the harvest is ready, he came quick with his sickle and reaped. For those with ears, better listen, right? We have to be aware and see what's working, what isn't working, because the subjective conscious can't change it. And so if we don't change it, we'll have a split mind. There'll be two different minds that think they want two different things, and they quarrel with each other. So it's better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife, right? And then you get Proverbs 19:14. House and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord, right? So to have a subjective consciousness that has knowledge, deliberate, wise, discerning, and judicious is excellent. But it's up to us to we're both parties, and we have to acknowledge that. We have to accept I am in both, right? There's only me. And so in Matthew 19:4-6, he answered, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh? So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not a man separate. Oh yeah, that was in this one, right? And that's it, man. And so that's the beauty. That's what we're doing. And no matter where we go, no matter how much you know, this is creation. To create is to continue to bring forth that which has not been brought forth before. Isaiah, do you see? I bring all things new. Do you not perceive it? All right? And it's just understanding that. And so what do we have to do here? So our job is to really get in that center state, if you choose to accept it, right? Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to get in that center state and stop separating, creating war between two things that are inexorably entwined with one another. Stop being the dam between love and the unification and beautification of these aspects of you, right? In this present moment, anything that you're experiencing is you. It's a part of you. Jesus said, don't try to remove the sty from your brother's eye until you remove the log from your own. And when you remove the log from your own, you can easily remove the sty from your brother's eye. Jesus said, for he who looks upon the world, no, I'm not going to go with that one. What else did he say? When you know what's in front of your face, your own self will be known. And you will see that you are children of the living Father. If you do not come to know yourselves. Oh, so then he goes, there's another part. All that is hidden will become manifest. If you do not come to know yourselves, you will live in poverty and you will be the poverty. And it's to a degree that I understand, to a good degree, that's growing within me every day, of just how true that is. My outer world is not something separate from me. It is like perfect and mathematically precisely joined to me as a part of me. Well, what is the me? The me is my concept of myself, which requires a concept of my world, which requires a concept of the relationship between those two. And with our powerful divine creative powers, man, in the depth and complexity of the unconscious, subconscious mind that holds the beliefs within that we may not even see, are continuing to produce a reality in front of us that is a part of us. Just like your body is to your personality, it's like your body is the feminine to your personality. Personality is the feminine to the mind is feminine to the soul is feminine to the spirit, right? And your outer world is feminine to you, right? Jesus, actually I will say this one. Jesus said, for he who looks upon the world and sees a body, for him the world isn't worthy. It's like your body, it's a part of you. And that's what we're doing, we're practicing. Just like a baby, when a baby's first born and it looks at its hands, it doesn't know that hand is its hand. It just allows the sending of a massive number of thought frequencies through itself. And then it realizes when it holds and expresses particular thought frequencies and feeling and intention frequencies, it has a reaction from this thing that it doesn't know is its yet. It doesn't know the body is its body yet. It's just like allowing thought frequencies, and all of a sudden a pinky moves. It's like, what? Wait, let me see. Am I related to that? Was there something I did that contributed to that pinky moving? So it sends out more thought frequency. Oh my God, it just moved again. Wait a second, let me try that thought frequency again. All right, 001111, right? And then it moves again. Oh my goodness. Bro, looks up to another baby. Bro, baby bro. Dude, I think I'm controlling this thing. Yeah, man. And the other baby's like, what? You're crazy, man. What do you mean? He's like, watch. And the little piggy moves. He goes, I think I did that. Let me try it again. I did it. Oh my goodness. I'm responsible for that thing. Right? And over time, it starts to realize what it becomes responsible for. And all things are possible. And, you can already see it happen in your life. You can see it to the degree that you've allowed yourself to believe you are one with your world. So, many of us have gotten to the point where we believe enough that you're one with your body to a degree where if you want to go pick up a piece of fruit, you can do that. That's magic, man. Dude, you are teleporting. You're disappearing and reappearing in other rooms. You're making fruit levitate. You'd be like, well, I'm not really making it levitate. I'm using my, I don't know, I'm going to sound like Rocky, I'm just moving my hand, grabbing a banana. Why is it funny to think of Sylvester Stallone saying banana? Anyways, and it's like, it's kind of funny how people don't marvel at that. It's like, dude, one, the fact that you just exist at all is pretty cool, right? But there's a banana over there, and you just pick, and they're like, yeah, I know, it's a banana, and I'll go pick it up. But that's not crazy. All I did is moved my legs and walked over to it and picked it up and then ate it. All right, well, okay, so you do realize that your body consists of somewhere between, according to present day science, 30 to 50 trillion organisms, most of which are not even human cells, that just because you on a whim decided to do that, all joined together in unison and worked perfectly to transport your body to that area to levitate that fruit and eat it. It's insanely remarkable. And let's dive even deeper than that. 30 to 50 trillion living organisms, which are comprised of trillions times trillions of atoms, which are comprised of, electric and negative and positive charge. Like what? Some even propose that those might have universes inside of them. So why are you able to do that? Because you believe you believe you're the body, and that you're responsible for it. So this is my hand. So what other areas of our lives, when we take that level of responsibility for our unification with it and oneness with it, that will allow us to do even greater things? Jesus said, "Verily I say unto thee, all of these things I've been doing, and even greater things than these shall ye do." Right? And it's going to begin with no longer being two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not a man separate. How many other areas are we, they say get out of your own way. How many other areas are we actually standing in between two things that when joined together would produce remarkable, beautiful results? And we're doing it because we're hanging on to pride, which is which, when you get to the root of it, is an unreasonable evaluation of oneself. So if you think all you are is the body and not the one who transcends the body, who is controlling the body by expressing itself through the body, then the body owns you. And that's why Jesus said, blessed is the lion, right? And right, so the lion, according to my understanding, in the tetramorph, represents the subjective, subconscious, feminine aspect, right? It says, blessed is the lion eaten by the man. Blessed is the lion eaten by the man, because the lion will become the man. Curses is the man eaten by the lion, because the lion will become the man. It's not the subject of consciousness is not evil. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's a beautiful component when joined and in a covenant and a union with the masculine component. And people can lean either way. Like, people can lean really heavily into the body and be overly greedy, selfish, lustful, all that stuff, right? When they identify with that aspect of self and then create a separation between the spirit, right? A separation between love, right? Which we'll get into soon. But it can go the other way around. With me, who was more leaning towards the spirit, I had a disdain for the body. Like, it just, material things annoyed me. And then I didn't realize just how much resentment I had towards that aspect of reality for a long time. And coming to grips with it, I'm realizing that if I want to escape the body, I can just go jump out of a helicopter or something, right? I don't think that's winning. You know what I mean? To me, anyways. Winning is to take the beautiful information I'm able to garner in heaven and bring it to earth. Because what's the point of it being in heaven if it can't be expressed on earth? What's the point of wonderful content if it can't be expressed into form? And that's what I'm realizing more and more. And so I'm in the process of doing this too. Some people who will listen to this may find that they identify more with the feminine. Again, not to be confused with what we think feminine is, but overly identifying with the body. And they may find some value in identifying more with the spirit to get them into an equilibrium where they can be at the center of the two and then become both, right? And there are people like me that are going kind of in the other direction, where we're identifying with the body as a part of us more, right? It's all parts that come together. And some people say separation is evil. No, it isn't. You can't have unification without separation. You can't even have feelings without separation. Because who's feeling what? Right? So individuality is awesome and beautiful, but as long as we see it and harmonize it and things like that. So enough with that. So let's talk a little bit. What do we got for time here? All right, we're at 40 minutes. So we're going to spend the remainder of this. I like to give a lot of conceptual perspectives to you guys. And when I'm talking, my goal, my intention is to allow the flow state or channel of information that encourages people to think while they're listening to it. Like it's not like my ultimate goal isn't to like say this stuff and be like, all right, let me write this down. Let me get all of the details. It's like, let me get the deets, right? Ultimately, I'm trying to help reflect back to others a way to cultivate bringing in that love, that intelligent energy, right? So yesterday we talked about how the universe expands, right? So the universe is comprised of material and space, and it expands, right? So if the universe itself is comprised of material and space, what on earth could it be possibly expanding into? Well, it would have to be negative space, negative material. Now, when we hear the word negative, we often think of it as an opposing force. But in reality, it's actually no thing. It's nothing. It's nothing but a concept that gives allowance and opportunity to that which is something to express itself. So it's a partner, and it's really beautiful. And so in order for the universe to continue to express itself, love to express itself, the creator to grow and expand, negative space is required. But the crazy thing is it's kind of like once you look at the negative space, it's full. And now, so imagine like a circle, and that's the universe expanding. And then on the outer reaches of it is negative space. And basically, once the universe is, you could almost look at it like once the universe is aware that there's negative space, poof, it fills it like water filling, falling into the deepest crevices and things like that. It's like poof, 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 poof. So you can never actually catch it, right? It's like poof, 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 it just keeps growing, right? And you could even see that that's actually, believe it or not, what you're doing right now. So it's for me, it's 6:49 a.m. All right, whatever your time is right now, in a relatively short amount of time, right? All of a sudden, it's going to be 6:50. It's going to be 1 minute later from now. Technically, that time frame that I just referenced doesn't exist yet. All right, so it would be negative space. It is something we can have a concept of that has not materialized or been enlightened. Right. So what's going to happen is when that minute ticker goes by, I looked at it at 6:49. I don't know how far it is, but basically in a few short moments, it's going to be 6:50. It's something I discussed as a possibility or a concept that was non-existent until it becomes existent. And guess who's going to be there when it becomes existent? You and me, you and I, we will be there, right? And so whether we realize it or not, if you want to get a kind of an idea of time, what's helpful for me is to see it as I am at the center of time. My past did not create me, but the I am created the past. And it did so radiating outwards like waves. And so when right there, it just hit 6:50. So now it hit 6:50 for me, poof, that which was negative space, and something that was an idea on the peripheral of my understanding, something that was in darkness just became enlightened by me. So you just did the same thing as the minute turned. So you are an enlightened being bringing illumination. So you are already the light. So you will already always be the light, which is really amazing. And you'll be juxtaposed between two layers of darkness. The thing that gave birth to you was the darkness because you came out of the nothing. But then what's fascinating is you came out of the nothing, and yet you continue to expand into the nothing. So you're the light, the candle in the darkness, but not in such a bad way as people may kind of interpret it. You are the light that shines on the world. It just is. It is what it is. And it's fascinating and it's beautiful. And so when we start to look at things that we used to see as opposition to ourselves, as the opportunity to grow and express love to and shine our light on, and realize that without that negative space, everything would be over. Life's over. That's it. We wouldn't be able to grow anymore. And we probably just crumble back upon ourselves. I'm not really sure what would happen, but we need to expand. We need to grow into these spaces to desire. And so think about it like with love. But what's happened is we become afraid of the dark. We become afraid of the negative space because we think it's an adversary. And so we have put up walls. So let's say there's an area within ourselves that could have, like the personality matrix. Number one, the personality matrix is definitely not all that you are. Not possible. If that was the case, how on earth were you a baby? You were being baby you. You were being toddler you. You were being adolescent you. You were being adult you. I mean, come on, man. It's like we're changing all the time. So it's hilarious to even assume that all you could be is a personality, right? Because the personality has changed so dramatically. What aspect of the personality? What is the personality made from? It's values and beliefs, right? And that express themselves through thoughts and feelings, which embed themselves in the garden of our mind to grow into new value belief trees, which produce fruit more like themselves. And while it may seem as though there are patterns in our behavior and our thoughts that indicate that, well, this is who I am, it's simply that we have over time cultivated and nurtured a particular set of thoughts and feelings, which gave birth to which grew into value belief trees, which continued to create fruit that gave birth to more thoughts and feelings like themselves. That it's that predominant nature of particular patterns that leads us to believe that that is all that I am, right? But it just isn't. It's just the patterns that you have in your mind, right? And the thing is in that song, the Hallelujah song, it says, "It was grace that taught my heart to fear, and it is grace that will set me free." I like to look at grace like the ether, love. Love does not need to strive. It does not need to plan. It literally is. It's an effortless energy. When because it is undefined, it can actually be whatever you believe it to be. But that in and of itself means that even though it's undefined, one of the characteristics of its undefined, limitless, needless nature is that it is grace. It can basically be anything based upon the eye of the beholder. And I like to look at it as intelligent energy, because this material world, if I really trace back what are my perspectives, I've gotten to the root of it is basically thoughts and feelings. Juxtaposition of thoughts and feelings, grown into these kind of bigger webs of complexity, of overlapping matrices or trees of value and trees of belief, and they kind of all connect to each other, like mycelium or something, or like what you think the brain might look like. But ultimately, all of those can be changed, because if something was able to create them, even though they seem solid to me and they seem like all that I am, the power, the grace, it was grace that taught my heart to fear, and it's grace that will set me free. Even though I may feel as though I have lived a life of struggling and strife and trying and needing to strive to come to conclusions and all these limitations, it's important to remember for me that if I say I cannot do this, well, let me rephrase that. It is impossible for me to say I cannot do this without having the word can in it. But it is certainly possible for me to say I can do this without having the word not in it. Which means that which predates the inability to do something is the ability to do something, because you cannot be able to do something that you wouldn't be able to do, or there would be no way to negate it. So the positive actually exists before the negative or the negation. The word negative means negate, deny, right? So ultimately, the possibility to do it existed before the possibility not to do it. And the power that created the ability to do it, the can, is the same power that is being used against itself to say cannot, right? And it's really fascinating when you come to look at it, right? Something created that's why in the Bible it says, "Consider the lilies of the field; they spin not, they toil not. Yet Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Consider the birds; they reap not, they toil not, nor do they live in barns. Yet the good Father feeds them. Are you no better than birds?" And, that's how the power of love can work. It can create anything, and it transcends time and space because of its undefined nature. And so it has the power to create a sun. I mean, think about this, man, right? There's something that made that sun. And actually, quite possibly, and likely in my opinion, an infinite number of suns. That little sun right there, which is tiny compared to so many other suns, literally heats an entire planet. What? It just continues to do so, and has for millions of years, and probably millions more, right? And we can accept the idea that some unknown, invisible force had the ability to manifest that thing and this Earth and all the other universes and galaxies and multiverses and omniverses, right? It doesn't have to strive. And to believe that it can do all of those things, but that it wouldn't be able to assist in us changing our mind. If I have a belief that I don't like doing dishes, that same power that created that belief that I don't like doing dishes could be the same power that creates the belief that I do want to do dishes, right? I don't know if I said this in one of these last 2 episodes, but I'll just say it again. There's a movie with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn, and it's called The Breakup, I think. And, it's kind of funny. You have a feminine masculine, right? And the feminine is saying to, Jennifer Aniston is saying to Vince Vaughn, she's like, hey, time to do the dishes. He's playing video games. And he says, I'll do it in a minute. And she goes, well, can you do it now? And he goes, he throws his controller down. He's not really mad. He's not being a super jerk or anything. And he goes, fine. And she goes, honey, it's not that I want you to do the dishes. I want you to want to do the dishes. And Vince Vaughn replies, why would I want to do dishes? And I used to laugh and think that was so funny and repeat it to everybody else, because that was the mindset that I had. And then I've realized something recently. Every time that I've said I don't like something, I hate something, that thing makes me mad. I find this irritating. What, unbeknownst to me at the time, what I was doing is putting up a barrier, putting up a wall between the power of love to flow into that situation. Or technically, well, in some ways, I don't want to get, I want to make this easy to see. As time goes on, I'll kind of break it down even more in depth, but I don't want to go too abstract. I personally enjoy thinking in the abstract, but I found that when bringing in new information, sometimes it's easier to keep it on a particular plane, and then we can expand upon it later. I'll just say it. Whatevs. Technically love is pouring in, but it's just being bent to produce the expression. So technically, yes, that attributeless love is pouring into and can create discord and disharmonious results. But just for the sake of this, I think it's easier to look at it. Because I don't want to have to keep putting all these disclaimers every time I say it. One way to see it is while love can be bent, grace taught my heart to fear and grace sets me free, right? So love can be bent in a way to create disharmony because it is an impersonal force. For the sake of this discussion, let's look at utilizing love in the way that I have chose to utilize it for my life, and that is to set the intention for it to, because it's all powerful. It's omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. So it's an all powerful force that can be anything that I choose it to be. So I think that's a good way to look at it. So my basic perspective that I've chosen to call forth when I call forth love is a force that unifies, that is in all and through all. So it has a level of intelligence that will always transcend that of what I thought I knew up until the moment that I called it. And that it can do anything. And so if I need it to be super intelligent in that moment, it will do it. If I set my intention when someone else speaks and I say, love, come into me. It's already inside of me, but love, express yourself through me in such a way that it provides the greatest good as I understand it for both me and that other person. Right. And then I zero out and it will speak through me. It does. Like, it's amazing. And it's the same way that bent love or disharmonious, discordant love used to separate and cause conflict can flow through you in what we would call hate. And you can see that in people. You can see someone who's normally rational and composed and things like that, and they get angry and they get triggered, and whether they realize it or not, it's almost like they tune to the radio station of hate. And so they tune to it, and it's almost like it speaks through them. They're like, I don't know why I said those things, right? One way to look at it is they're just calling in that energy, that frequency, that radio station, right? And this is why I think Jesus, when he said, of my own self, I do nothing, but through me, the Father, explaining it to them back then, does all things. So I have cultivated my understanding and awareness of what I would like love to be for me, knowing that it had the power. See, now ultimately, even though love, or, as Yoda would say, the force, I'm not going to try that. But the force can be bent, right? The dark side bends the force, right? And then the Jedi kind of become one with the force. So because we're in this mirrorverse, so what you give, you get. It's really weird. So if you try to bend that force in a certain type of energy, it will take on the characteristics of that energy. It's really amazing, and the complexities of it. I think we all have to, if we want to really start taking advantage of that, first of all, desire it. Above all things, to really understand that and grow into that. And there will be outside sources like this podcast that will provide information, but ultimately, I believe it will require the diligence and strong intentions to kind of uncover yourself. So I can only give these angles of it, but I assure you, from what I've garnered for information, if it's something that you truly desire, gaining in the knowledge of, you'll know more and more of it, about just how we are in this mirrorverse, the understanding of the law. It will come. It just will. It's magical, and the more you do it, the more exponential it is. It grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and you'll just have these innate knowings, right? And if there's something that you are misunderstanding, keep on the path, and something outside of you will reflect back to you, and kind of be like, hey, look, yep, you're on the path, things like that. But so for the sake of this, and that's why I live by the adage now: hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, right? Because it is a mirrorverse. It's crazy. And I'm not going to dive into that because I'm about to close this one. I might do one more episode tomorrow with more practicality, because I went on to some other topics to get to this. But so for me, what I did is I set my intention for my life, and I wanted it to be open-ended to allow love, to that intelligent energy, to work through my life. So there's a couple of things that have served me well that may be helpful if you guys want to kind of explore them yourself. Number one, I asked that intelligent energy, love, what Jesus called the Father, right, the source within me, to give me clarity and understanding, further clarity, further understanding, and exponential growth in my understanding of the truth that there is no force that works in opposition to me ever, but rather what I once saw as a force in opposition to me served me by being that of which I chose to believe it to be. And that now, for the sake of my experience, I am seeking the truth and acknowledgement to a deeper and clearer level, that what I once saw as a negative force against me is a negative space, which provides me, instead of opposition, opportunity. And that my obstacle between the ability for intelligent energy, love, seeking my greatest good, to pour into the environment and negative space shall be removed. So that was kind of a long-winded way to say it, but I'm getting more clear when I make those requests to my inner self. But another way to basically look at it is, I seek to grow in my understanding that what I thought was opposition is opportunity, and to give me a greater access to the powerful force that created me, that is infinite, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, to pour in and give me the greatest good, pour into those negative spaces, that what I once thought were dark areas within myself that should be avoided, that should be feared, that indicated that there was something wrong with me, that I was bad, or that others were bad, or that my world is bad, or that I deserve to suffer or feel angry, that I see the truth, and a light gets shined on those, and I acknowledge those as not my opposition, but my opportunity to grow. And without them, what would I do? That I don't have to fear them. And by knowing that I don't have to fear them, more light will be poured in. And the very thing that I was once afraid of is now the one thing that gives me purpose. The one thing that I thought would have been impossible to love, or the things that I thought were impossible to love, now become things that I easily love. And now my goal in my life isn't just to accomplish things, because what are accomplishing things if I don't love doing it? My overall goal is to seek ye first the kingdom within me of love. Seek love first. Be love first. Express love. And in so doing, all of these things shall be delivered unto me anyways. Why? Because we're in a mirrorverse. The world will always mirror back to you what you are being. All right, guys. See you soon.